The Strait of Hormuz, 48 hours on the clock. Somewhere in the northern Arabian Sea, a U.S. destroyer quietly adjusts its heading. No announcement, no press briefing, just a course correction. Precise, deliberate, and invisible to everyone except the people who are paid to notice it. The strait below is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. 1/3 of the world's seaborne oil passes through it every single day. And right now, the U.S. Navy is not simply patrolling it. They are solving a geometry problem, a positioning problem, a problem that has nothing to do with diplomacy and everything to do with physics, distance, and time. The world is watching Iran, waiting for a response, counting the hours. But the admirals are not watching Iran. They are watching charts. They are watching coordinates. They are watching a clock that started running the moment the ultimatum went public. And that clock does not care about negotiations. 2 days ago, the ultimatum went public. Word for word, the United States was demanding that Iran fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, or face strikes on its energy infrastructure. Not its navy, not its missile batteries, its power generation network, the largest facilities first. Now most people read that and immediately focused on Iran. Would they comply? Would they stall? Would they call the bluff and dare Washington to follow through? But that is the surface reading. The target choice is the part that matters. And it was not random. You don't threaten a country's civilian power grid as an opening move unless you are sending a very specific message. We are not here to fight your military installation by installation. We are here to turn your country off at the source. That is a fundamentally different kind of strike than anything involving mines or naval vessels or coastal batteries. It requires a different weapons package. It requires a different flight path. And it requires ships in a completely different position than the one they would need to neutralize a naval threat near the water. The world read a diplomatic ultimatum. The Navy read a target list. That is what the public read. Here is what the Navy heard. The moment that ultimatum went live, it stopped being a diplomatic document and became an operational order. Not because anyone in Washington declared it so, because that is how the military clock works. A public threat with a fixed deadline and a named target is not a negotiating position to the people responsible for executing it. It is a preparation window. And that window started closing immediately. 48 hours sounds like a long time. For a naval repositioning of this scale in this geography, against this target set, it is not. It is tight. It may be exactly tight enough if everything started moving at the right moment, but the margin is not comfortable, and nobody in the Navy is treating it as such. Here is what had to happen the instant that clock started. Ships needed new headings, weapons, loads needed verification, target packages needed to be pulled, reviewed and loaded into fire control systems. Pilots needed to be briefed down to the individual ingress route. Submarine commanders needed updated positioning orders. Every layer of a potential strike, surface, subsurface, air, had to begin its preparation sequence simultaneously, quietly, and without any public signal that preparation was actually underway. That is the mission inside the mission, not the strike itself. The readiness for it and the problem, the specific geometric physical problem, is that the U.S. Navy already has significant forces in the region: destroyers, cruisers, marine assets, enough firepower on paper to execute a strike package of serious scale. But having firepower in a region and having firepower in the correct position to use it are two entirely different things. The ships that were in place when the clock started were not necessarily in the right place. And closing that gap quietly in 48 hours, while the entire world watches every degree of heading change, that is the problem nobody covering this story is actually explaining. Here is the geography problem, and it is a problem that almost nobody covering this story is explaining correctly. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. That sounds like open water. It is not. The navigable shipping lanes, the actual corridors through which large vessels can move without running aground, are roughly 2 miles wide in each direction, separated by a median zone. Iranian territory sits on the northern shore. The Musandam Peninsula closes the southern side. Iranian coastal defense batteries, anti-ship missile systems, and fast attack boat staging areas line the northern flank for the entire length of the strait. This is not open ocean where a U.S. destroyer can maneuver freely. This is a kill zone with a shipping lane running through the middle of it. Now consider what a strike on Iranian power infrastructure actually requires from a positioning standpoint. The targets are not coastal. They are not port facilities sitting at the water's edge where a ship can simply turn and fire. Iranian power generation sits deep inside the country, northeast of Tehran, in the mountain ranges of the interior, hundreds of miles from any coastline. A Tomahawk cruise missile launched from a surface ship has a maximum effective range of roughly 1,000 miles. That range sounds sufficient, but range on a spec sheet and effective range through contested airspace along a specific flight path are two different numbers. Iranian air defense systems, including Russian-supplied S-300 batteries positioned around Tehran and key infrastructure sites, force any incoming missile to fly a route that avoids the densest radar coverage. That route adds miles. It narrows the margin, and it means a destroyer sitting at the mouth of the strait may be sitting at the edge of reliable engagement range rather than comfortably inside it. That is the positioning problem in its simplest form. You can have the weapon, you can have the ship, but if the ship is in the wrong place, the weapon cannot reach the target cleanly, and the mission fails before it begins. So what does the correct strike position actually look like? Let's break it down. Surface ships first. A destroyer carrying Tomahawk missiles needs to be far enough from the strait to avoid the immediate defensive envelope around Hormuz, but far enough north and west inside the Gulf, or far enough south into the Arabian Sea, to open a clean launch corridor toward interior Iranian targets. That means ships currently patrolling near the strait itself may need to push north by 100 miles or more. At standard transit speeds, that is a 10 to 14 hour movement. It does not sound like much, but that movement has to happen while Iranian reconnaissance assets are watching every heading change. The Navy cannot simply steam north at full speed without signaling exactly what it is preparing to do. So the repositioning has to look routine, gradual, unremarkable, which makes it slower than it would otherwise be. And understand, the Navy will not have a single ship on this mission. A strike package against dispersed Iranian power infrastructure requires multiple vessels launching from multiple angles simultaneously. You need coordinated salvos hitting different target sets at the same moment, because the moment the first missile crosses into Iranian airspace, every air defense battery in the country goes to full alert. The second wave has to be already in flight before the first one lands. Getting all of those ships into their designated positions simultaneously, without any single movement pattern making the overall geometry obvious to Iranian intelligence, that is the coordination problem. That is what 48 hours has to solve. Submarines second, and this is the piece nobody in the media is discussing. The U.S. almost certainly has at least one Virginia-class fast attack submarine already operating in the Persian Gulf or the Northern Arabian Sea. And here's what makes that significant. Submarines do not reposition the way destroyers do. They do not show up on Iranian radar. They do not get tracked by commercial satellite imagery. They move slowly, silently, and without any observable signature whatsoever, which means a submarine assigned to a strike mission against Iranian targets has almost certainly already been in its designated launch position for days, not hours. Days. It was there before the ultimatum was issued. It was there before the public clock started. That submarine is not a preparation. It is a fait accompli. The carrier airwing third, because a strike of this scale does not end with the first Tomahawk salvo. What happens if Iranian air defenses intercept a portion of the first wave? That is where the carrier airwing enters. F/A-18 Super Hornets loaded with precision-guided munitions, ready to push into Iranian airspace the moment the first wave has degraded the defensive picture. E-18G Growlers providing electronic warfare support. E-2D Hawkeyes airborne, providing command and control over a strike package operating across hundreds of miles of hostile airspace. Getting all of that to combat readiness takes the full preparation window available. And it started the moment the ultimatum went public. 3 layers: surface, subsurface, air, each one covering the failure modes of the others. Iran is watching every single U.S. ship move in real time. They have reconnaissance assets in the region. They have intelligence sharing arrangements with Russia and China. They have access to commercial satellite imagery with revisit times measured in hours. Every degree of heading change on a U.S. destroyer gets noted. Every additional aircraft spotted on a carrier flight deck gets counted, which means as the U.S. Navy quietly repositions, Iran is reading the geometry in real time. They are watching launch corridors open up. They are drawing their own conclusions, probably accurate ones, about what the final positions will look like. That puts Iran in an extraordinarily difficult position. Do they disperse their own high-value assets now? Move air defense batteries away from known coordinates? Every dispersal move is visible, and every visible dispersal move tells Washington something important about Iranian intentions. Or do they do what Iran has historically done in moments exactly like this one? They stall. They issue carefully worded statements that neither confirm compliance nor directly defy the ultimatum. They try to run out the clock, without fully committing to either opening the strait or accepting the consequences of keeping it closed. The stall is the most dangerous option on the table, not because it leads directly to violence, but because it forces the hardest decision onto Washington's side of the table, and the clock will not wait for a clean answer. When the clock hits 0, there are really only 3 scenarios that matter. Scenario A: Iran complies, the strait opens, mining operations stand down, no shot fired, but the Navy does not leave. The submarines stay on station. The destroyers hold their positions. The pressure does not lift. It simply becomes invisible again. Scenario B: Iran stalls. No clear answer. No formal opening. No direct defiance. Carefully worded ambiguity. And that forces a binary decision onto Washington with no clean options on either branch. You strike on ambiguity and own every consequence that follows. Or you let the ultimatum quietly expire. And a deadline ignored once is not a policy that failed. It is a policy that never existed. Every government watching this in Pyongyang, Beijing, and Moscow takes careful note. Scenario B is the one that should concern you most. Scenario C: the clock hits 0 and Iran says nothing. Silence. And the U.S. Navy, already in position, already loaded, already briefed, executes. The 48 hours was never really about giving Iran time to decide. It was about giving the U.S. Navy time to make sure Iran had no good options left when the clock ran out. The submarines are already on a station. The destroyers are already in their corridors. The pilots are already briefed. The target coordinates are already loaded. Whatever Iran announces in the final hours, compliance, ambiguity, or silence. The Navy will be exactly where it needs to be when the number hits zero. The question everyone has been asking is whether Iran will blink. The question that actually matters is whether Iran finally believes it has no choice.